Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Apex Online Racing YouTube channel, where today we are kicking off Season 15 of the GT3 Project Cars 2 League here from Barcelona-Catalunya circuit that has got 16 turns in total, 4.655 kilometers in length, which equates to 2.892 miles, and we have a near enough full grid of drivers ready for you to observe throughout this season. 15 seasons that we've been doing on Project Cars here at AOR. My name is Yorkie065 and welcome to everybody here in the live chat and joining us for this fantastic, well, hopefully what is going to be a fantastic race and a fantastic season. In total, we have got a 10 race calendar, and our first round, as you can see, is here at Barcelona-Catalunya. Annoyingly, I don't actually have a an image to show you guys for the calendar, so I'll sort that one out for the next time round. But the second round next week is going to be a Ruinless Arts, which is going to be an interesting race. Yeah, that is going to be pretty narrow track. Obviously, these cars are very, very quick indeed, and it'll be very interesting to see how the GT3 cars handle the curves, especially in the first sector. The third round will be at Rapuna GP circuit over in Australia, I believe it is. A circuit that isn't too well known but is an awful lot of fun, so that'll be a good race. Hockenheim GP is obviously a familiar name, so is the Donington GP circuit. That's going to be round 4 and 5 respectively. Round 6 is going to be the Nürburgring GP circuit, with Azure circuit being round 7. Round 8 is going to be over at Zhuhai over in China. And then we got the Dubai Autodrome GP circuit, and then the finale of the season will be at the Indianapolis Road circuit. And we've got some changes here for this season as well. Usually in previous races, or previous seasons should I say, we've had a hour-long race as the main staple race here in the GT3 League on the Project Cars 2 game, and every now and then we drop in a 90-minute race into the fray as well. We usually have like 2 90-minute races throughout the season, just to mix things up a little bit more. And then this season we've got the addition of a kind of a sprint race or 2-race format in one round. So there'll be two races that we'll be doing this at. The next round is going to be the first of those races at Ruinless Arts, where we're going to be having a 20-minute race to begin with, and then it swaps out to a main race, which is going to be 40 minutes in length. And for that 40-minute length race, you're going to be taking the top 16 positions from the first 20-minute sprint race and then putting them in reverse grid order for that longer race. So we got a slight mix up there with how things will be running. And then the other race that we're going to be doing that at will be the Nürburgring GP circuit, which is another phenomenal track for overtaking on. So that will be a good and interesting one there. So the guys are just preparing themselves in the lobby still at the moment before we get underway and actually get into the qualifying session. It'll be a 15-minute qualifying session in length. The weather is due to be fairly good, quite some heavy cloud cover, but there's no threat of any rain when we go into the race. Once again, no threat of rain there, but some very heavy overcast conditions, so the track will be a little bit cooler, and the race start time will be at 1 o'clock in game. And just getting a thumbs up to say that we're all good to go. So I'm just going to fire off the lobby now, and we shall be getting into the qualifying session. So if I bring up the game there you can see the track map. Like I said, it is 16 turns in total, 4.6 kilometers in length, which equates to 8-9 miles in length. And the first sector begins as we go into the entry for turn 4, and then coming down to turn 10 is the beginning of the final sector. And the main action points that we need to keep an eye on will be turns 1, turn 4 at the top there. Also turn 5 and turn 10. Those are the key overtaking opportunities around this circuit as we now come into the qualifying session, where the drivers have got 15 minutes to try and sort themselves out into their qualifying order effectively and try and get the best possible position for the beginning of this race. Now, we've got a number of new drivers here in this season as well. We've got some returning drivers, a few veterans who have been sticking with us through thick and thin here at AOR across the 2 Project Cars games that we've been running the GT3 League across. So we'll do a run through the field of everybody who is coming out onto the circuit here for the season and basically get an idea as to what cars that they are going to be driving. So let's start from the top. We have got Volume there driving the Ferrari 488 with the Blue Dragon down the side of it, the number 50 car. I believe that he is a new driver who I've not commentated on previously. We got Crab, who's currently sat in the pit lane at the moment. He is driving the Lamborghini Huracan. He is now just leaving the garage. He is wearing the colours there of the black and yellow Lamborghini. If we can pick up him exiting the pit lane, we can see his teammate just there in front in the red and black Lamborghini also leaving the pit lane, and pretty much everyone is coming out to the pits at the moment. We'll bring up the track map there so you can get an idea of the field spread. But Crab is going to be driving the number 77 car and already struggling with the tyres a little bit there, coming through the first turn when exiting the pits. We've got Jorguk, who is there in the lemon Lamborghini with the green highlights or accents around the car, the number 92 Lamborghini Huracan. We got Fubar, who is driving the Audi R8 GT3 car. It's the older version of the Audi R8, not the new Evo version that they are using in the real world. We've got Fatworm also driving the Audi R8 with the number 9 car in the red and white livery. Then we've got Matt Hayes driving one of the Actual Vision black and white accented Audi R8 liveried GT3 cars around the circuit. We got Gwegwin, who is driving the Cadillac. Interesting. So a bit of mix and variety here. I have had a look through the car list, and we do have a pretty good number of the GT3 cars here this season actually being covered, which is fantastic news and absolutely brilliant to see. It's always great to see some variety, but yeah, good to see that the Cadillac is being represented. We've got Mr. Zach, who is driving the black and yellow number 76 Porsche 911 GT3 art that we can see circulating there, just beginning his first flying lap coming through turn 3 now. We've got Trip, who is a returning driver driving the number of the beast, the 666 Lamborghini, who is, I believe it's not Speedy Goes. We've got Winklers. It's Crab. Crab's teammate is Trip. As they're running the same livery design, just obviously different colours. We've got Coates GTR, who's driving the Irish TV Lamborghini there. As we can see, just going through turn 4 at the moment. We've got Deuce, who's driving the Demon Tweaks Lamborghini Huracan. You can tell that the Lamborghini is pretty popular here in this league. And we've got Stefan Curry as well. Stefan Curry, sorry. Knew I'd get his name wrong straight from the off, and he even told me how to pronounce it. Stefan Curry is driving the other Irish TV Lamborghini there, the number 6 car with the black highlights around there. We got Sub Conan, who's driving the Acura NSX GT3 car. It's the first time that I've seen this car here in the Tier 1 League, so it's great to see that this car is being represented, and I do believe he does have a teammate somewhere along the line as well. We got Yobsk. I'm going to say Yobsk. I do apologise to everyone whose names I'm absolutely butchering here. I'm not the best with names, but I'm going to go with Yobsk and run with that. But he is driving the Amara Ferrari 488 GT3 car. As we can see, Tony Clifton returning. He's driving the Audi R8 GT3 car. We got Nunu or Nuno, sorry, who is there driving the Porsche 911 GT3 car. I couldn't quite tell whether the camera was focusing on the Porsche or the Ferrari behind. He's just gone and popped himself into a provisional P8. We got Pun, who's also driving the Acura NSX GT3 car. And we got Clank driving the Ferrari 488. We've got WMDR Martin, who is returning. Probably the only pad driver here in the tier. I know that he was in previous seasons. He is driving that Lamborghini GT3 as well. There is Stefan, there is Tripp. We've got Jorguk driving the Lemon Lamborghini. We've got Speedy Go, who's also driving the other Lemon Lamborghini with the blue highlights. Just a nice little change there. So those two are being teammates. Deuce, who we've seen, Volume, who we've seen, Pun, we have picked up already. Alan is driving the Mercedes AMG GT3 car, as we can see there in the Mercedes AMG factory colours. He is circulating around at the moment in 22nd position. Atomic, we've got him circulating in the green with the lime green accents there on the Simmons Mercedes AMG GT3 cars. There's a Porsche there spinning off to the right hand side of the screen. There is Fatworm, who we've picked up before. Inky Chris driving the BMW Z4 GT3. What a fantastic sound this car produces. Older generation GT3 car, but it'll be interesting to see how he fares against the competition, and especially against the newer GT3 cars that are in the field. We've got Mad Hayes, who's currently sat in the pit lane. We saw him earlier. We've got Gregwin, who we saw earlier as well. Clank, we've picked up already. Subconan is one of the other drivers driving the Acura, who we've already picked up as well. There's Yobutsk. We got Ked Half, one who is driving, I believe, the Porsche 911 GT3 car. Or is... Nope, he's currently sat in the pit lane. He is driving the Ferrari 488. There is Andrex, an old returning veteran. He is driving the Audi R8, which is an interesting change in car choice for him. Haven't really seen him drive the Audi too much, but I know he likes the front engine cars. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares with a mid-engined V10 Beast. And we've got Nuno, sorry. We've got Tiago Pereira. Tiago Pereira, who's currently sat in the pit lane driving the Porsche 911. Asturbo currently sat in the pit lane as well. He's in the Mercedes AMG GT3 car. Speedy Go we've picked up before. We've got Pathos here driving the Audi R8. Alan, we've seen. Mr. Zach, I believe we have seen. Tony Clifton, we have seen. There is Fubar. There is Jorguk. We've got Coates GTR and Strongest Avenger at the head of the field in the Acura NSX GT3. So I believe that is pretty much everybody. Yep, Juice, Atomic, just trying to pick up the names here. Otto Winkler. He is a driver that we haven't picked up before, and he is driving the Porsche 911. Seems to be having some troubles with that car as well. Whoa, cutting right across in front of someone there who potentially was on their flying lap. That would have been frustrating for them. Mad Haze we have seen. There is Clank. So we've got Stefan Curry there circulating round. Kedherf, right. Strongest Avenger. Whereabouts is he? He is towards the final sector, taking things relatively easy at the moment, but we'll jump on board with him as he seems to be setting himself up for a flying lap. So we'll do a bit of a flying lap here with him and give you guys a rundown of how the guys are tackling this circuit as he is coming into the final chicane now. So we'll jump on board into the roof camera with him as he's just setting himself up for a good exit, driving off and accelerating from the chicane and into the final turn, which will be completely flat out, trying to maximise the full width of the circuit, but not using too much curb on the exit there to try and keep the speed and momentum and prevent himself potentially losing any traction. We're coming down towards turn one. We're looking for a braking point just before the 100 metre board, about 110, 120 metres before the corner. Got a car there on the inside. He's forced him to miss the apex for turn one. Turn two, he hooks up fairly nicely, holds a fairly tight line coming into turn three and holds an even tighter line coming out through the exit there. I think possibly trying to look after the tyres and may actually be bailing on this lap due to the car parked at the apex, which I believe was a lagging car. He's got very deep into turn 4, bringing it back for a very late apex, trying to set himself up for turn 5, and indeed he is short shifting, braking and shifting down into second gear for the left-handed hairpin. Not really troubling the curb on the exit. And I do think that Strongest Avenger is just taking it easy here for the moment. So where is Coates? He is just coming through turn 12, coming in towards the final few corners. And he's just trying to get himself a little bit of space before beginning his next flying lap. He's only 800ths of a second off the pole time at the moment. But we'll do our onboard lap with Coates GTR here. So here he comes, coming out the final corner. Obviously trying to maximize the acceleration. Coming down this long start-finish straight, one of the longest runs down towards the first corner, so we could potentially see some overtaking. Once again, just before the 100-meter board, down into second gear, hooking up the apex quite nicely, trying to open up turn 2 a little bit, using as much of the road as possible, but also trying to open up turn 3 here. Gets a nice smooth line through there, just a little bit of a lift upon the entry and shifting up through the gears, using all the available runoff whilst staying within the track limits. Hard down into second gear, only 400ths of a second off his personal best at the moment, holding a relatively tight line on the exit as we come into turn 5. No real reference point. It's gone a little bit deep, but hooked up a nice late apex, which will help him on the acceleration coming out the exit there. Using the curve quite nicely on the outside before we come into turn 7. Turn 6 was kind of down in that straight. Now into turn 8, taking a lot of the curb on the inside to try and straight line the exit as much as possible. Now into the fast right-hander at the top of the hill, turn 9. The car does get a little bit light as it goes over the crest. We've got a car that we're going to be trying to pass here coming into the braking zone of turn 10. 110 metres before the corner. He's got himself 100th up on his previous best, down into first gear, try and manage the traction on the exit. Turn 11, hammer the curb on the inside, then hook up a double apex through turn 12, one early, one later on. Use the curb on the outside to your availability. Turn 13, nice and smooth there in second gear. Hammer the curbs coming through the final chicane of turns 14 and 15, down into turn 16, completely flat out. He's going to use a little bit of curb on the exit there. Heading towards the line. Is he going to be able to improve and take a provisional pole position? No, he's not, but he's edged himself ever so slightly closer, but remains in P2. We've got 2 minutes and 40 odd seconds, and Coates is going to be trying to make another attempt at trying to better that time. Strongest Avenger is currently just coming through turn 2 and now into turn 3. Believe he is going to be on a flying lap here, as he bailed out of his previous lap with a car parked at the apex, although he is doing some tyre weaving, so I'm suspecting that he may have just come out of the pits, in fact. Let's jump to Speedy Go, who is in the final sector, hanging out the rear end as he's coming through turn 12, trying to get as much lap time as possible to try and improve. He is 1.1 seconds off Strongest Avenger's pole position time at the moment, who is really setting the pace. Everyone else is kind of fairly close, as Turbo just goes and pops himself up into a provisional P3. Speedy Go was about half a second off there, off his previous best lap, but he's got 2.6 litres of fuel there or thereabouts in the car, so we should be able to have one more go here on this lap and see if he can get himself a better starting position. Turbo will be retiring to the pits there as he's pulling off to the side of the circuit, and indeed he does. Alan is also in the pit lane, so he'll be starting no better than 5th position and no better than 3rd position for Turbo, as they're not going to be able to get back out onto the circuit in time and actually get a lap set. We've got Jorguk here. He's currently stuck behind, I believe that is Tripp in the red Lamborghini just in front of him. Tripp is a pretty quick driver, so it could be helping Jorguk a little bit here in trying to set a better lap time with the slipstream, but obviously the dirty air is going to affect him in the corners as well. But we can see him circulating at the moment. There is Strongest Avenger, I believe, beginning his flying lap now. Coates GTR is just coming through the final chicane. See if he is going to be able to improve on his lap time here and try and get himself up into pole position. He's just coming out the final corner now. He's on the run to the start finish line. Will he be able to improve on his 1:42.683? And no, he does not. He's off by 22.47 seconds. So he's obviously going to be going for one final attempt here. We've got 20 seconds of the session remaining, and then the drivers have the lap that they are on to finish off as well. We've got Fubar, who's going to be starting no better than 8th position. We've got Pathos, who's going to be starting no better than 10th. We've got Stefan Cowie, who's going to be no better than 15th place. We've got Gwegwin there in 18th position. Kedharth is going to be no better than 20th, with Mad Hayes in 21st. Subconan in 22nd position. We've got Otto Winkler, no better than 24th. Fatworm be starting in 26th, with Crab in 28th, and then Volume in 29th. But we've got a few drivers still circulating round. Coates is still there. He's in the second sector, heading up towards turn 9. We've got Jorguk, who is on a lap in turn 4, just coming out the exit there. Tony Clifton is towards the end of the lap, so he'll be looking to improve on that 7th position. We've got Andrex also just coming into the final sector, but he's down on his previous fastest. Mr. Vazak has just crossed the finish line to complete his session. He's going to be no better than 12th position. Inky Chris has gone across the line after the checkered flag. WMD Martin is there in the final sector as well. So where is Coates? He is there. Jorguk is there. Tony Clifton are coming across the line. He does not improve on his 1:43.8, so he'll be starting in P7. Coates is just coming out the final corner here. He is the man who is mainly threatening Strongest Avenger at the moment. Is he going to improve on his lap time as he comes across the line? He does! And he goes and pips him by just over, or just under 1/10 of a second. Very close between the top two there. We've got Jorguk just coming into the final chicane. Let's watch him as he now comes into the final turn. He'll be looking to try and improve on his provisional P6 that he has at the moment. So he's on the run down to line. 1:43.760 is his time to beat, and he... I don't know if he improved. I didn't quite see it. I was looking for the split coming up in the middle of the screen, but it wasn't there. But either way, here is your qualifying results for round 1 of season 15. We've got Coates GTR in the Lamborghini starting on pole position, just pipping out Strongest Avenger in the dying moments of the qualifying session. We've got As Turbo in 3rd place. Speedy Go is going to be there in 4th place, with Alan in 5th. We've got Jorguk in 6th position, Tony Clifton in 7th, Fubar in 8th, Andrex in 9th position, and then Pathos rounds out your top 10. We've got Diego Pereira is there in 11th position, with Mr. Zach in 12th. Inky Chris in 13th place, with WMDR Martin in 14th. Stefan Curry is there in 15th position, with Trip in 16th. We've got Jobsk is there in 17th position. We've got Nono in 18th place, with Clank in 19th, and 20th goes to Gwegwin. Then we've got Kedharth in 21st position. Mad Hayes is occupying 22nd position, with Subconan in 23rd. Deuce in 24th. Otto Winkler in 25th place, with Fatworm in 26th. Pun in 27th. Crab in 28th. And then Volume will be rounding out our 29 car grid. And I can see that Subconan has got a 2 grade place penalty there, which will be for speeding in the pit lane. So here we go then. Advancing on to the actual race session. 35 laps in total. 34 of those will be racing laps, and we are going to have 1 lap which will be a manual formation lap that we do here at AOR, and we'll run you through that when it comes round to it in just a moment. But until then, the drivers do have a 2-minute grace period where they've just got a little bit of time to recompose themselves, get themselves comfy and settled in, ready for the race start. They can double check, make sure that they've got the correct car setup applied to their car ready for the race, and also they have the correct strategy that they want for their pit stop here in this race, which they will have to serve. There is a mandatory pit stop that they will have to serve here in this race. They don't necessarily need to service the car, but they do need to at least stop in their pit stall and then drive out once again afterwards as well, and everybody will need to do that, otherwise you will be disqualified from the race. So drivers Just getting themselves sorted, getting themselves ready. Like I said, the action areas that we're going to need to be looking out for will be turn 1, turn 4, turn 5, and turn 10. Those are the key overtaking opportunities. Rest of the circuit, there is 1 or 2 other places that can be passing opportunities if you're kind of side by side or someone makes a mistake, but otherwise it can be pretty difficult. And obviously, we'll be looking out for those areas, trying to stick with the battles and give you the most entertaining stream that we possibly can here for this race. And hopefully, we'll have a great season opener. Like I said, 15 seasons across Project Cars 1 and Project Cars 2 that we've been covering here with the AOR GT3 League. Been involved for pretty much the entirety of it in some capacity or another, whether that's me actually driving, whether that's me kind of coordinating, or whether I'll be actually commentating like I have in the last few seasons. And oh dear, we have lost Coach GTR from the off. He is dropped from the session before the race went live. So Strongest Avenger will now be taking over pole position. That's going to be mighty frustrating for him as he pipped Strongest Avenger by 99 hundredths of a second for that pole lap. We could see that he was pushing hard in those dying moments of the qualifying session, and unfortunately for him, he's gone and lost connection for whatever reason, whether it's a technical issue or whether he's just lost connection to the session. It's real shame for him, but the race must continue on. And yet, Domi, it's interesting to see the Acura up there at the head of the field. And it is a pretty strong car. The downforce is really quite high, quite efficient on the car. Its efficiency in that department is really good. It's quite an easy car to drive as well. Like you say, it just kind of lacks a little bit of power, but it is turbocharged as well, so at some of the higher altitude circuits it will suffer less in comparison to the naturally aspirated competition, such as the Mercedes AMG that As Turbo is there driving in 2nd position, and also Speedy Go, who is in the Lamborghini as well behind in 3rd position. Both of those cars are naturally aspirated. So some of the higher altitude circuits, which this one is one of. It's not massively above sea level, but it is a little bit higher up than some other circuits. So there will be a slight power deficit for those cars in comparison to when they're running at down at sea level. But yeah, the guys are just doing their manual formation lap at the moment. They will be trundling around at a limit of 120 kilometers an hour, 80 miles an hour. Now they're moving into the formation zone, which is just at the exit of this corner, where they'll form into a 2x2 formation and reduce their speeds down to 80 kilometers an hour, which is 50 miles an hour. And then in an acceleration zone, which all the drivers will be aware of, which actually starts at the end of the outside curbing on the exit of the final corner and finishes at the actual start-finish line. The race leader, Strongest Avenger, will be able to put his foot down, and we will go racing here and kick off Season 15. Once he puts his foot down, he cannot fake the start. He has to do it in one smooth motion, and everyone else can go racing from there on in, and the drivers cannot overtake the car directly in front of them in their own train before the start finish line. So everything is all set, and we're actually underway racing already. Season 15 is off and go. As Turbo still holding on to 2nd position at the moment. The Strongest Avenger looks like he's got a fairly good jump. He's got Speedy Go coming up towards the rear of his car, kind of looking to the inside. Oh, so there's a little bit of door rubbing there between As Turbo and Jorguk as they come through turns 1 and 2, as Jorguk was out braking himself slightly, but it looks like everyone's kind of there through cleanly. We do have one Lamborghini coming across the infield there. A little bit of door rubbing between Mr. Zach and wasn't quite sure who it was that was in the Z4. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. Mr. Zach is there in the Porsche. I believe that may have been Enki Chris, and yes, indeed it is. He's coming very much under threat from Trip as they come through turn 4 now, but things are looking pretty good so far. If we jump back up to the head of the field, As Turbo's trying to hold on to P3 at the moment, trying to switch the tyres on as he's very much under threat from Jorguk and Alan directly behind him. Speedy Go and also Strongest Avenger trying to check out at the head of the field and pull away a gap early on. We got, looks like some potential spinners at the back. Oh, it's Kedhalf who's there, sat stationary. I think he is struggling to get the car going. We can see that there we go, he's got the car fired up now to get himself turned around and rejoining back onto the circuit. But nightmare for him at the start of his race. We've got quite a bit of battling going on as Fubar is all over the back of Alan as they're battling away for third, fourth, fifth, sixth position. Tony Clifton is just there in the Audi just behind as well. So all these cars are very much packed together. WMDR Martin with his windscreen wiper on. We've got 2x2 in the background there. I believe that's between Tripp and also Clank in the Ferrari 488. They just about managed to sort themselves out. A couple of people diving to the pit lane early to sort their mandatory pit stop nice and quickly and get that done and out the way. That is a tactic that some drivers do like to employ here in the GT3 league. We've got a couple of drivers trying to break the toe coming down the start-finish straight. We've got Tripp going a little bit defensive to Clank, and just behind them we've got Jobst and also Stephen Curry with Jobst going around the outside of Stephen Curry there in turn 1 and slotting himself up into 15th position. Good move by him. But the two race leaders at the head of the field checking out at the moment. Strongest Avenger looking around about a second ahead of Speedy Go, but there's a gap of 2.5 seconds to Jorgert now, has managed to get himself past As Turbo. As Turbo struggling at the start of the race here to really settle in. He's released 2 cars after starting from second place and is now down in 4th position, but he's got a little bit of a train starting to form up behind him. Alan is the next driver who's going to be keen to try and get himself past as soon as possible, as we just saw Fubar there getting pretty flirty with the curbs on the exit of turn 9. Let's look down through the field as Tony Clifton is having a little bit of a look there at Fubar. Wasn't quite able to make that work. Andrex is there in 8th position at the moment. We've got Mr. Zach in the Porsche behind with Tiago Pereira in the second Porsche that is following. We then have Pathos in the Audi up into P11 at the moment with WMDR Martin there in 12th place. We've got Tripp who's hunting down Clank in front of him. And then we've got Jobsk in 15th position with Stephen Curry there in 16th place. He is our league coordinator here for Tier 1. And he has got the Acura of Subconan who's just behind him. I believe Strongest Avengers teammate. So they'll be looking to try and get a decent haul of points. We've got some more drivers into the pit lane. Greg Wynn in the Cadillac is one of those. We saw earlier on that Inky Chris in the end of the first racing lap peeled off into the pit lane, as did Nono as well. He is into, or has been and served his mandatory pit stop. We've got Kedhalf who had the incident in turn 5. Greg Wynn will be rejoining the circuit in and around Inky Chris and Nono, I believe. No one else is diving into the pits at this early stage unless Crab has also been into the pit lane. But let's jump back up to the battles at the head of the field. So Valet Tactic making that early mandatory pit stop. Like I said, you don't need to actually service the car. But in cases where you're stuck behind another driver who you feel you're actually quicker, then it can pay dividends to make that early mandatory pit stop. Get yourself into the clear air, set the good lap times, and then try and make the positions up in the strategy rather than passing or trying to pass physically on the circuit where you could potentially lose lap time to other drivers employing that strategy. And also, obviously, trying to make the physical pass on track, you are running the risk of contact as well. Obviously, it makes things a little bit less interesting for us, but it's something that the drivers do like to do just to try and get themselves a clear air and try and gain some early positions at the early phases of the race. We've got Andrex here in 8th position, hunting down Tony Clifton just in front. They were very close coming through the last few corners. We can also see in the background as well a number of drivers pretty close. We've got Jorgert As Turbo, who is not in the pit lane, he's still there in 4th position. We've got Pathos, who we're currently watching in the Audi, going a little bit defensive to WMDR Martin, who's trying to go around the outside, coming into turn 1. He's having a good look, but he's not quite able to get alongside far enough to warrant the position coming into turn 2. Nice try, but Pathos was there and positioned his car rather nicely Managed to gain the ground that he needed to take the apex of that second turn. Not too far off the back of these guys, we've got the battle between Clank and Trip. Clank going very defensive as Trip is trying to go around the outside coming into turn 4. It's a long way around there, but now he's trying to switch, get himself set up for the switchback. Should be on the outside coming into turn 5 again, but he may get the better run coming out through the exit if he can set himself nicely up for that. But Clank has actually positioned himself quite tight on the exit to try and defend from it. So they remain in 13th and 14th positions respectively for the moment. Let's jump back up to the battle here with Andrex. We've got Alan having a little bit of a look down the inside of As Turbo. Wasn't quite able to make it work into turn 10. That is one of the action areas that we're trying to keep an eye on. As it's quite a heavy braking zone at the end of quite a decent length straight. Best overtaking opportunity obviously is into turn 1 with the length of that start-finish straight there. Alan getting very close, as we can see, onto the back of As Turbo in front, but not really quite close enough. Jumping on board with the roof camera. You can see he'll be trying to pick up the slipstream. As Turbo is holding on to Jorguk up in front. And they've got Speedy Go in second place with Strongest Avenger still holding lead. Alan having a little bit of a look down the inside, but not doing anything there. Andrex is too far off the back of Tony Clifton to make the move. Pathos too far off the back of WMDR Martin. In fact, WMDR Martin has managed to get past Pathos there on that previous lap to gain that position. That obviously happened off camera. Didn't notice that. We've got Trip and also oh no, there's contact between the two. That's Clark off into the wall. I don't think Trip made contact with the barrier, but he certainly did spin round and he was involved in that incident there. He's just trying to find and wait for a bit of space to rejoin onto the circuit safely without taking anyone else out. He managed to do so, but now he's dropped down into 20th position. He's going to be straight under pressure from Deuce in the Demon Tweaks Lamborghini behind him. But just a little bit of contact there between the two drivers, saw them both off. There we can see Clank. No doubt he is going to have damage to the front of his car and he'll be wanting to pit as early as he possibly can to get himself repaired up and back out onto the circuit. He's managed to recover back into 14th position, so he's only lost one position from that. Didn't quite pick up what exactly happened in that contact, but obviously we saw the two cars spinning off to the side of the circuit and into the wall. Let's take a look down towards the tail end of the field. Cat Half is still circulating around. Inky Chris is leading the group of cars who have already made their mandatory pit stop so far. We've got Nono Aparicio there in 26th position at the moment. Crab in 28th with Gregwin right there behind in 28th place. And actually Gregwin is having a little bit of a look out on the exit of turn 7 and 8 there to try and get around the outside of Crab, but didn't quite get the drive coming off the corner to get fully alongside, but it's going to be very close coming down this long back straight here in towards the braking zone for turn 10. Gregwen switching round to look to the inside. Surely he's going to be able to get this move done and dusted. Gregwen gives him, Crab gives him the room on the inside as they go side by side coming into turn 11. Now into turn 12 as well. Still side by side between the two, trying to battle over who is in second to last position. At the moment, Crab has managed to gain the higher ground and get himself back ahead of Gregwin, who does settle back in as we come into the final chicane, but Crab's gone deep across the final chicane there. Surely he's actually going to be diving off into the pit lane. I believe that's his potentially second stop, but that releases Gregwin up into 27th and away he goes. Things are spread out a little bit more now in these positions up at position 4 and 5. Alan's still all over the back of As Turbo. You can see just how close these two guys are as we jump on the bumper cam there. Gives you a nice low down intense view of the action as As Turbo's Mercedes spits some flame, shifting up into second gear. There's two guys haven't really been battling hard, but Alan has certainly been sitting very close to the back of As Turbo, making him very much aware that he is there, lurking and waiting for the opportunity to pounce. Now actually As Turbo has managed to get himself within a second of Jorgurk up in front. There he is as Crab comes out of the pit lane. Here comes Alan, is having a little bit of a look to the inside, but thinks better of it and settles in and just takes a position. As Turbo back in the rear of the car, slightly into the first turn there. Could compromise his line through turn 2 and into turn 3, but things look to be fairly good. He's holding on to the position for the moment. Alan is just again presenting himself in the mirrors of S-Turbo in front, just trying to force him into making a mistake to try and capitalise and see if he can sneak the position. S-Turbo a little bit defensive into turn 5 here, going a little bit deep. But they managed to get themselves through. This could allow Fubar to close up onto the back of them. Andrex and Tony Clifton have swapped positions as well. Andrex now up into 7th place. So that's good stuff by him. He's trying to drop Tony Clifton, but he's holding on to the back at the moment. Just a 10th of a second difference in the lap time on the previous lap. WMDR Martin has now managed to get himself up into 10th place ahead of Mr. Zach, who's now very much under pressure from Pathos behind. He's having a look to the inside coming into turn 10. Mr. Zach goes defensive. He's going to be taking a tight line. This could allow Pathos to get a little bit closer and potentially with another opportunity for trying to make a move, but it's pretty difficult to overtake coming through the sequence of turns 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 unless you really get a good run on the other driver. So Pathos just needs to be patient, try and get a decent run coming off the exit of the chicane here, hammering the curb on the inside. Oh, Tony Clifton's had a spin, rejoining the circuit into 12th place, but he's had a spin going through that chicane. That's gone and dropped him from 8th position where he previously was. Pathos is right there looking at the back of Mr. Zach. It's fairly close between the two drivers. Not going to be close enough for the move into turn 1. Does still have a little bit of a look though, just presenting himself in the mirrors of Mr. Zach in front, just trying to distract him a little bit, but that hasn't really worked. Both drivers nailing their marks, and now WMDR Martin is now up onto the back of well, actually though, that's one of the back markers, isn't it? That's Crab. That's there. Oh, Crab spinning round. He's managed to hold on to it though and get it out the way of the guys coming through behind. He just needs to rejoin the circuit safely, which he's managed to find a nice gap to do so. So he's now back out onto the circuit, obviously struggling a little bit here in this opening round. Just try and pick up some more battles. We've got Stephen Curry here in 13th position, trying to hunt down Tony Clifton after his spin. There is Pun, who's just over a second off the back of Jobsk in the Ferrari 488 up the road in front. And then we've got Subconan and also Trip battling away here. Less than 0.2 of a second between those two. Subconan in the Acura hunting down the Lamborghini in front of him. So I think we'll sit with this battle for the moment, as this is probably the closest battle on the circuit from what I can see in terms of the time. Pathos and Mr. Zach are fairly close together. And obviously the battle between S-Turbo, Alan, Fubar and Andrex continues to rage on there. It's the battle for 4th position, but Subconan, I believe, seems to be the closest driver. We've got a few drivers who do also have penalties as well, which we'll take a look at in just a second once they come onto the start-finish straight. So Trip managing to gain a little bit of ground before coming onto the start-finish straight. Let's take a look at the timings real quick. So Pathos has got a 1 second penalty, as does Jobsk. And yeah, those are the only two drivers that have time penalties to their names at the moment. And where there are only 1 second penalties, those will not be cleared by the stewards post-race. If you get a big penalty that isn't your fault, such as a 30-second time penalty, if, for instance, you had to take avoiding action to avoid a spinning car, then the stewards will remove that penalty off from your total race time. But for small penalties for track limits excursions will not do them well. And Fubar, Andrex's teammate, has just gone and had a slight little spin there all on his own coming into turn 10. Managed to regather it back up and get back onto the circuit and circulate him round once more fairly quickly, but he has now lost the position to his teammate and now drops down into 7th position. Alan and Asturbo still fairly close together, and Alan had actually got a pretty good run coming off the final turn there. He is very much there in the slipstream of Asturbo as we're on the run down towards turn 1. This is the best opportunity that Alan has had so far for trying to make the move and trying to get himself up into 4th position, and Asturbo makes things a little bit boring for us by lifting out of the accelerator there, and Alan goes up into 4th place. Asturbo not really wanting to fight that position too much and lose too much time, and just lets Alan go through. So roles have now been reversed. It'll be interesting to see if Asturbo can use Alan's pace to try and close up onto the back of Yogurt up in front. And at the head of the field, Strongest Avenger hasn't really had too much airtime here in this race, in this season so far in his Acura. He is still circulating around in the race lead. He's got 3.5 seconds to Speedy Go in 2nd place, doing high 1 minute 44s. Alan is the only other driver that I can see who is also in the 144s. We've got Pun in the pit lane, also in his Acura. Is it Acura or Acura? I'm not entirely sure. Hopefully one of you guys in the live chat can confirm for me what the pronunciation of the two actually is. But hello KGB, I'm doing very good, thank you. How are you? Welcome along to the stream. It's glad to see a number of you guys coming in, tuning in here for the racing action, obviously with everything that is going on in the world, which we'll get onto talking about in just a second, as Mr. Zach has just lost the position to Tony Clifton, who is trying to recover after his spin earlier on in the race. Pathos is defensive to Stephen Curry, who's there in 13th position at the moment at the back of this 4-car train. It seems like Mr. Zach is really struggling a little bit here, as Pathos is almost having a little bit of a look, coming side by side into the chicane. Mr. Zach going a little bit defensive there, coming into the final corner. That's going to hurt the speed and momentum of the two of them. Tony Clifton checked out of this battle. It's now a 3-car fight with Stephen Curry at the tail end of this field. It's a draft train on the run down towards turn 1. Mr. Zach going defensive, almost going potentially 3 wide coming into the first corner here, with Papos trying to go around the outside of Mr. Zach. It's not going to quite work. It's very, very close between the two as they're coming through that second turn, and now into the long right-hander of turn 3. Papos trying to set up a switchback on the exit there. Didn't quite work as Mr. Zach managed to bring his Porsche back in close. Pathos having another little bit of a look coming into turn 4 here as both the two drivers go very deep. Well, actually not very deep, a little bit deep coming through that 4th corner. We've got Stephen Curry still sat at the back observing the action going on in front of him, waiting to pick up one of the two drivers to drop off and make a mistake and capitalise on it. Let's actually use him as the camera car as we watch the two guys battle in front. Pathos going a little bit deep there, coming through turn 7. That's going to compromise his run out of turn 8 and up towards the fast right-hander of turn 9. You can see the difference in approach into that corner between the 3 drivers, with Mr. Zach using the brakes a little bit, whereas Pathos just opting to just lift out the accelerator a bit. Mr. Zach going very defensive here as Stephen Curry's having a look to the outside, very close between the 2 cars up in front. This is fantastic battling between the 3 drivers for 11th position as we are on lap 12, our 11th racing lap. Still raging on at the moment, but there's no real passing opportunity through here. But that's not going to stop Papos having a look coming into the final chicane. Mr. Zach forced to go defensive. Oh, contact between the two of Stephen Curry and Papos. Stephen opting to go and dive into the pit lane straight away to get that damage that he probably picked up there sorted and repaired. And that allows the 2 drivers in front of him to battle away, who are really battling away quite hard. Just seen that. Who was that who was coming out of the pits? We got Yobs coming into the pit lane there as well. It wasn't Volume. Gregwin is being through and out the pit lane. There is Deuce circulating around in his Lamborghini. Inca Chris is now up into 18th position after his earlier stop. Fatworm is coming down the start-finish straight there in his Audi R8. I don't believe it was Trip. Actually, Subconan and Trip side by side coming into turns 1 here. Trip getting the butter off Subconan on the inside line, goes and slots himself up into 14th position. I'm not entirely sure which way round these 2 drivers were off the top of my head, coming, well, just before we pit the 2 guys up. But Subconan is now in 15th position, a Trip now in 14th. Just picked up that change of positions. We've got Otto Winkler in his Porsche there, circulating around in 13th position at the moment. Paphos and Mr. Zach still battling away. We've got Tony Clifton now up into P10, as we saw earlier, after his spin, trying to recover his race somewhat. We've got WMDR Martin hunting down Tiago Pereira in front. That windscreen wiper still going on that Lamborghini, and I imagine it'll be going all race long as well. And then we've got a battle for second position now between the two teammates in the podium places. Speedy Go in second position at the moment, with Jorgok in third place. Less than a second between the two. Alan is there in fourth place, has got himself a little bit of ground to As Turbo behind, who's there in fifth place. You can see just over a second between those two drivers now, and Andrax 2.3 seconds off the back of As Turbo. We got Pathos and coming into the pit lane, which means that the battle between himself and Mr. Zach no longer rages on. Pathos stopping in the pit stall there. Gets the little bit of service on his car done and out the way, and he gets rolling once more down that pit lane. Where is he going to come out in relation to other drivers? We got Fat Worm coming down the start-finish straight there. It is Inky Chris at the very top of the picture, with Nuno behind as well. He's going to lose the position to Inky Chris. Also, Nuno goes through as well. So Pathos rejoins the circuit in 18th place. We've got Deuce there in the Demon Tweaks Lamborghini in the background, and Pathos getting ahead of him quite comfortably. So let's try and hunt for these other battles. I think the next closest pairing that we had is between WMDR Martin and Tiago Pereira in that Porsche. This is the battle for 8th position as they're in the final sector at the moment, circulating round. Had a pretty action-packed opening phase of the race. We're on lap 14 out of 35 at the moment. Our voices already started to get stretched a little bit, commentating on the action. But yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying this with everything that is going on in the world with the global pandemic. I hope that you guys are keeping yourself fit and healthy, keeping yourself clean, maintaining your hygiene standards, washing your hands, and doing what you possibly can to prevent the spread and combat the virus. And obviously, on behalf of everyone here at AOR, we'd like to wish you all the best as we go through these difficult times. Very much something that I think it's pretty safe to say that very few of us have experienced anything like it in our lifetimes. Hopefully we can get through it and out the other side with as little heartache as possible, and hopefully we can get back to normal as quickly as possible as well. But we will be continuing to provide the racing action here at AOR, so make sure you subscribe to the channel with the bell notification. That way you will be notified every single time that we go live with the various leagues that we run across the community, across various different racing simulators as well. We've got the F1 2019 leagues, iRacing, Assetto Corsa, Competizione, of course, Project Cars 2 in both GT3, and also the PS4 endurance leagues at the moment. We do also have other leagues going on around throughout the week as well. So it's definitely worth subscribing here to the channel if you want to see some high quality league racing action. As WMDR Martin now dives to the pit lane, gets his car slowed down, and gets himself into the pits. And you can see he's using the pad there, tapping away at the thumbstick to navigate his way through the narrow barriers of the pit lane as Speedy goes very wide out the exit of turn 3 there. That could potentially be a slowdown warning for him that he will need to clear. Very much coming under pressure from his teammate Jorgok, wanting to try and nip that second position away from him at the moment. The car just up in front of them is a lap down. I believe that is Clank in 26th position in the Ferrari 488 GT3 car, and indeed it is. In fact, he's actually going very defensive there, trying to go around the past Jobsk, who's recovering to the circuit on the exit of turn 8 there. Manages to find a bit of space to do exactly that. comes out just in front of Alan, as we can see. Got Pathos fairly close to the back of Nuno. Inky Chris now up into 15th position after serving his mandatory pit stop. I'm not entirely sure if Fat Worm has served his mandatory stop as of yet or not. As they go through turn 3 into turn 4. Tony Clifton now in 13th position. Has he had a bit more trouble, or is he just... I think he may have just made his mandatory stop on the previous lap. Subconan there in 12th position. And yeah, Gregwin there with a 46.6, as Matteo is pointing out there in the chat. WMDR Martin is back out of the pit lane. He's resumed his race in P11 as Alan is now into the pit lane to make his mandatory stop pretty much bang on the halfway mark. Manages to hit his marks in the stop box as well. And he'll be getting back out onto the circuit fairly swiftly. I imagine that he'll come out in front of WMDR Martin quite comfortably. Mr. Zach is going to go through, but Mr. Zach is yet to make his mandatory pit stop. And Alan rejoined the track in 9th position. So Alan is the lead driver of all those who have served their mandatory stop so far. So we need to keep an eye on him and compare where he comes out with a number of the other guys. I think there may have just been someone spinning in the background of the picture. Andrex. Oh, don't say he's gone and collected As Turbo, who's very, very slow. I think As Turbo may have had to make avoiding action. It was Clank, I think, was the car that had spun round, but As Turbo's gone and lost a whole bunch of positions to Andrex and also Andrex's teammate Fubar, who are now up into 4th and 5th position. So As Turbo's gone and lost a couple of positions there. Andrex and his teammate pretty close together. So I think Fubar has only very recently just gone and nipped that 4th position away from Andrex. As they come now into the final chicane. Andrex taking a much tighter approach. Uses a bit more of the curb on the exit there. So come through the final turn. I doubt that Andrex is going to hustle and pressurize his teammate too much, and instead just focus on trying to get decent lap times in to try and combat Alan's pace. As Turbo is now into the pit lane, so we'll try and keep an eye on him where he comes out in relation to Alan once he's fully served his stop and exited the pit lane. There is Mr. Zach just coming through the final chicane and into the final corner. Alan is the car that is behind him. There he is, getting the power down and into that final turn now. As Turbo has stopped in his pit box and is on his way out towards the pit exit, but I do believe that Alan is going to quite comfortably pass him on the exit, and indeed there he goes. So yeah, As Turbo has gone and lost a lot of time, I think, possibly getting caught up in an incident with Clank, who spun in front of him. That's cost him the position to well, he was behind Alan anyway when Alan made his stop. But that's gone and cost him the ground, and obviously cost him the positions to Fubar and Andrex. What is going on here with my screen? Please don't say my game has just crashed. I think my game has just crashed. I can hear things going on, but I can't see what is going on, so bear with me just a moment. Saying that the game's still running, I'm still hearing things, but at the moment the picture is completely frozen, which is rather frustrating. Apologies about this. It seems like I've run into a technical issue, so what I'm going to do is kill the game, and we shall get it back up and running and back into the lobby so we can resume the action. Not entirely sure what happened there. That's the first time that has happened to me here on the laptop. But we're just firing the game back up now, and as soon as I can, I'll get you back the picture and back into the racing action. So the game is just loading up now, but it's been a good race so far here in this opening round. It's just a shame we ran into that technical issue there. Hopefully everyone else is okay, and it is just me that has lost connection to the lobby there. Now loaded back into the lobby. Still got the director spot. So we'll load ourselves back into the game now. So yeah, apologies for that, but the racing action has been good so far. Hopefully it will continue to be good throughout the race, and we'll see what we can do. We've got Nathan Bell here in the chat as well. I am doing good, thank you, Nathan. Hope you're doing pretty good as well. Excuse me while I just take a quick swig of water. The game just loading back, and here we go. Back in. Things are quiet at the moment with the sound, but that should come back in the next couple of minutes, as will all the data in terms of the positions and all the lap times. It looks like Speedy Go is into the pit lane to serve his mandatory pit stop. He sat stationary for a moment. He's now back underway. He was in second position when we last left him. As Turbo isn't in second place. This looks like the starting grid order more than anything, but the game will sync up in a minute. Strongest Avenger still circulating around there at the head of the field. He is still very much in first position, I believe. Has yet to make his stop, or has he? That's not Asturbo's. It is Asturbo's car in front. Interesting. Asturbo has been into the pit lane. So Strongest Avenger could potentially be further down the field than we anticipated. I wonder what has gone on there for him. Has he had a spin or an incident or some damage that he's had to repair, or has he had to take on fuel? Really hammering the curbs there through that final chicane. Nice Turbo seems to be slowing to let Strongest Avenger go. He's just trying to pick up the last possible bit of slipstream that he possibly can. Coming down the start-finish straight, Turbo not really fighting the position and does let him go on through, knowing that he's the faster man. And Nathan, yeah, that doesn't sound particularly great. Unfortunately, that does very much sound like the symptoms. But just keep yourself well rested, mate. Don't push your body. Don't push your body hard. Just do as little as you can and try and get as much rest as you possibly can. So here we go. The game is now fully syncing up, and we'll get all the data in terms of the accurate positions and all the lap times and everything else like that. We'll see where Strongest Avenger is actually positioned in the field. It's saying that he's still in first. He is still in first. So yeah. Is that potential issues for Asturbo? Yes, potential issues for Asturbo. So we got this horribly wrong, and Asturbo is now down in 19th position. Is actually a lap down on Strongest Avenger, possibly having to make a second pit stop for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, we missed everything that was going on there. But Asturbo, who was previously battling for 4th position, has had a nightmare in the last 5 to 10 minutes or so, and is now finding himself down in 19th place. We've got ourselves a nice train of cars here with Paphos at the head of the field, Tony Clifton there in the Audi R8. We've got Subconan, which is the Acura that we're focusing on. Acura, I believe it is. Sorry, keep on saying Acura. Oh, big sideways moment there for Subconan as he's coming into turn 3, but manages to gather it up quite nicely. Inky Chris in that older generation BMW Z4 is holding on to the back at the moment in P14, and then that will be Stefan Curry there at the back of the train in P15, as Inky Chris is having a little bit of a look down the inside of Subconan, getting very close to the back of the rear excuse me, of the rear bumper. Almost 3 wide as we're on the run down through turn 6, down towards turn 7, but that's not going to quite work. Inky Chris having a look to the inside of Subconan coming through turn 7, just about manages to hold on to a huge sideways moment there. Very well given back up, and somehow he's managed to hold on to the momentum and hang on to the rear bumper of Subconan as we're coming up towards turn 9, and we're now on the run down towards turn 10. Obviously that's going to cost the momentum that Stefan had on Inky Chris and has prevented him from trying to mount an assault for that 14th position. But Inky Chris still very much right there on the rear bumper of Subconan in front, coming into turn 13, riding the curb on the inside. Just having another little bit of a look as we're coming into the final chicane, hammering the curbs as we bounce over there. Subconan peeling off into the pit lane to serve his mandatory pit stop, so that's the end of that battle there. But Stefan Curry is going to be right on the rear bumper of Inky Chris as we look, getting a very good look at that rear diffuser and the rear gearbox of the Z4. Stefan Curry having a look to the inside on the approach to turn 1. Who will be the later of the late breakers? Inky Chris trying to line himself up on the racing line, concedes the position for the moment, but will he battle hard to try and come back at him coming through turn 2 and into turn 3? Looks to the outside, but Stefan Curry takes the position and holds the nice tight line coming through turn 3 and holds and consolidates it and gets that 13th position off Inky Chris. Good move there into turn 1 and good battling between the two drivers. We've got 2 of the race leaders. Andrax is into the pits as well as the race leader, or previous race leader himself, who's now coming out of the pit lane and back onto the circuit. He is there in 3rd position, and yeah, it's very unfortunate to see what happened to you at the beginning of the race, Coates, after that fantastic lap to get yourself onto pole position. Yeah, Strongest Avenger now back out, rejoining in 4th place. Tiago Pereira has slipped himself up into 3rd position with Fubar there in 2nd, and Jorget now takes over the race lead. Tony Clifton hunting down Pathos in front of him. It's a battle for 11th place. I think we'll stick with these 2 guys for the moment. Actually, let's go take a look and see what Pan is doing in his Acura. And he is hunting down Nuno Aparicio for 18th position. And there was one other guy who was reasonably close. I think it might have been Kedhalf and Deuce. I think they may have swapped positions potentially, as Kedhalf was fairly slow there coming out the exit of turn 4 into turn 5. Obviously having some troubles here in this race, down in 23rd position at the moment. But yeah, let's resume this battle here. Tony Clifton hunting down Pathos. Actually, just up in front of them as well is Otto Winkler in the in that Porsche 911. Haven't really seen too much of him in this race, but 2 guys have been hunting him down a good 2.5 seconds, taken out of the gap between Pathos and Otto on the previous lap. So I think Otto may be struggling a little bit with the car, possibly a slight mistake on the previous lap, or is yet to serve his mandatory pit stop. Pathos and Tony Clifton working their way through, and they're getting fairly close together here as they come into turn 9. Tony Clifton a fair bit neater to the apex on the inside, but didn't quite get the run coming off the exit. Having a little bit of look to the inside, gets very, very close to the back of the Audi though at the apex of turn 10. Somehow the 2 of them managed to avoid making contact. As Pathos is right there on the rear bumper of Otto. He's going to be right there on the exit as well. He's going to compromise his exit. Otto getting out the way of these 2 guys, allowing him to both slip on through. As we came into turn 13 there, Tony Clifton has got a much better run and a much neater line coming through that final chicane. Through the final turn, he's going to have the slipstream on the run down the start finish straight here. Will he be able to close that gap up and try and mount a passing opportunity into the first corner? He's closing up, he's having a look to the inside, he's going to go late hard on the brakes, he's going for the move down the inside, slight dive bomb there, but he's made the move work. Fantastic stuff by Tony Clifton to get himself up into P9. Paphos just about saw him coming in time and gave him just about enough room for an Audi R8 on the inside for Tony Clifton to slip on through. Really bold stuff there by Tony. Fantastic stuff. He's made that work for him, and now he's got to get his head down and focus and try and pull out that gap and see if he can close down to WMDR Martin, who's a good 20 seconds up the road. He's going to have his work really cut out for him there, as we've got 11 laps remaining here in this race. We've got Tiago Pereira peeling off into the pit lane to serve his mandatory pit stop in his Porsche, so it'll be interesting to see where he'll come out. Obviously we've got Speedy Go just going through the picture there. He is now up into 4th position, and second place, I believe, as Alan is putting a lap down on another driver there. Slots in behind. Andrex isn't too far off the back in his Audi R8. And then Tiago Pereira is coming out of his pit stall now and heading down pit road. He will lose the position to WMDR Martin, I believe, who oddly swerves across the circuit there. Not entirely sure what that was for. Possibly just trying to get a better idea as to where Tiago Pereira was down that pit lane, but yeah, seems like a pretty comfortable gap to Tony Clifton behind for Tiago, so he will resume his race in P8. Got Fubar, who's up in 2nd position at the moment, but is yet to serve his mandatory pit stop. Deuce is getting blue flags according to the race feed down there in the bottom right. Jorguk is currently out in the race lead, but is also yet to serve his mandatory pit stop. Who is that that's battling away there? That's As Turbo and Fatworm, the two drivers. As Turbo trying to make a recovery back through the field, gets himself up into 16th position, should be able to hold on to that coming into the first corner, and indeed he does. Takes that position quite comfortably, and his next target is Gwegwin in the Cadillac, who's just over a second up the road there. You can see him just in the background of the picture, will now be in your foreground. Very distinctive sound from that American V8 that is there in 15th position at the moment. We've got Stephen Curry battling with Otto, trying to work his way up through the field. Is our lead coordinator. He's managed to get himself ahead of Inky Chris. Those two drivers have now changed position, with Stefan now in 12th place. This could potentially be P11 fairly soon. Is he going to look to the inside coming into turn 10? And indeed he is. Otto is going to give him plenty of room though on the inside to take that position. Not really troubling him in trying to make any defensive maneuvers there and fighting for that place. So Stephen Curry now up into 11th position. Inky Chris will be Inky Chris will be the next person wanted to now take P12 away from Otto. You can see gap closing up fairly quick, and in fact Otto dives to the pit lane there to serve his mandatory pit stop now, which will release Inky Chris and try and pursue and hunt down Stephen Curry up in front. We've got As Turbo. He's managed to get past Gwegwin already on this lap, making fairly short work of him there of 46.1. Gwegwin was 48.5 on the previous lap, so 2.4 seconds. And in fact, Gwegwin has just gone and let the race leader of Jorguk through. So As Turbo is almost an entire lap down from the race leader, but well, in fact he was lapped by Strongest Avenger that we saw earlier on. Jorguk is yet to make his mandatory pit stop, so he will need to do that. We've got Fubar still circulating around in 2nd place. So we're on lap 27 out of 35 in total. Strongest Avenger in that 1st position, currently there in 3rd place, looking about 25 seconds off the back of the current race leader, which should see him plenty of time to get back out into the race lead, but his previous lap wasn't all that great at 146.6, where I have seen Strongest Avenger been doing high 144s and low 45s. Jorguk in the mid 45s on the previous lap. In fact, Speedy Goat, the man on the move at the moment, with 144.7. Actually, you see what the fastest lap of the race is, of 44.6 there, 44.0 for Strongest Avenger. I don't think anyone has beaten that. And indeed they have not. So strongest Avenger with the fastest lap of the race at the moment. He'll be getting the 1 extra bonus point with that one. We've got Jobska there with 1 second penalty, as well as Clank. Subconan has got a 40-second penalty. That's likely to be speeding in the pit lane, as well as Asturbo's penalty that he's got there. That's probably going to be speeding on the pit lane as well for him. Stefan Curry with 1 second, as well as Pathos and Tony Clifton. Andrex has also got a 1 second time penalty. Strongest Avenger with a 1 second penalty. And Fubar with a 10-second time penalty to his name. That is probably just being picked up as well, coming into the pit lane. So that's real unfortunate for him. That's going to be quite detrimental for his race, as he was pretty close to his teammate when they came into the pit stop phases. There is Andrex coming out through the final turn. Fubar is just being released from the pit limiter. There is Andrex. Andrex should pass him before he gets to turn 1, but it's going to be very close between the two teammates. But Andrex, at racing speed, does indeed pop himself ahead of his teammate. But where is Fubar going to come out in relation to the other guys around him? Oh dear, no, that's volume spinning off there, having some troubles coming up through turn 2. It's made pretty heavy contact with the tyre barrier on the left hand side of the circuit. He's got quite a bit of damage to his car. He does rejoin the circuit though. He's just waiting for a decent gap to rejoin the track in. Still there in 26th position at the moment. But yeah, Fubar's got 11.5 to 12 seconds to WMDR Martin behind, obviously with that penalty, which is 10 seconds I believe. Martin's only got to close that 2 second or so gap to actually pip that second position off of Fubar before the end of the race. Who was that was battling away there? We saw, I think it was Tony Clifton. No, it wasn't Tony Clifton. Who else had a similar coloured car to him? It's Clank and Fatworm battling away for 21st position, and just pick them up in the background of the picture side by side. Seems like the battle may near enough being settled, unless Clank is able to come back at Fatworm and try and take that 21st back off of him. Two are fairly close together at the moment, as we can see coming into the final few corners of this lap. Oh, Fatworm going very deep there in the final chicane. That's allowed Clank to close right up onto the back of these two guys. And in fact, Fatworm going right over to the pit wall on the right hand side on the exit there. I think to try and not really fight Clank too much. He does go and take the position, but they got WMDR Martin coming up behind, who's going to be lapping them. Clank bailing out there and lifting off. It's going to be side by side between Fatworm and Clank coming through turn 1. Clank on the outside. He's going to have the inside for turn 2 though, but Fatworm on the outside of turn 2 has managed to regain the position and hold onto it with the traffic coming through and putting them both a lap down. Pretty good and fair, respectable racing to do that without impacting WMDR Martin's race, but yeah, has managed to sort that one out and continue fighting on without impacting the race leaders. We've got Yogurt up into the pit lane from the race lead. That's going to be Strongest Avenger, who could potentially inherit the race lead here unless the lap times are being drastically different on my end. And nope, Strongest Avenger does actually go through. Up into first place. Yogurt rejoins the circuit. He's going to lose the position to his teammate Speedy Go, which I believe was the way round that the pit lane that allowed Pun to come up alongside, and I think there's just a bit of door panel rubbing between the two. Drove them both off the circuit. The cars look in pretty good condition, so I don't think either of them made contact with the tyre barrier that's there, but they did come awfully close. And they've rejoined onto the circuit in 18th position, just behind the battle between Andrex and Fubar, who we can see here. The two teammates battling away in the final 5 to 6 laps of the race. Seems to be the closest pairing, and in fact Andrex giving a flash of the lights there to let Fubar go through. Fubar giving a flash of the lights to say thank you. I think that could possibly be because Andrex feels that Fubar is quicker than Andrex is, and wants to use him to try and close up onto the back of Jorgurk up in front. But obviously with Fubar's 10-second time penalty, he's going to end up losing that position anyway. It's more just kind of a, here's the opportunity to go and hunt the car in front. But at the end of the race, if you don't manage to do it, we shall reverse the positions anyway. Kind of strategy call there. Whoa, no, there's Subcoda making heavy contact with the wall in the background of the shot. He's in a bit of a precarious position. He's managed to keep the car running in neutral. Don't reverse it. He does so, he's on the racing line, he needs to get himself... Oh dear, two cars come through, Fatworm and Clank. He needs to find first gear. Get the car completely stationary, now flick up, there you go. Get that first gear engaged, don't stall the car again. As he now tries to rejoin the circuit. Manages to do so. But that's going to cost him a whole bunch of positions, and as you can see, he's got some damage. Quite heavy damage to the front of his Acura. And that front bumper flapping around is really going to hurt the aero efficiency of the car. No doubt he'll be wanting to pit at the end of this lap, but he's got an entire lap to go before he actually gets round to the pit entry. Is the worst possible place that he could have had that spin. Fortunately, he didn't collect any other drivers when trying to rejoin back onto the circuit. So Andrex and Fubar still the two closest guys at the moment. In fact, Crab is closing up onto the back of Subconan, who's rejoining after his spin that we just witnessed. And I imagine that Crab will take that 23rd position fairly comfortably and easily. I doubt Subconan could do too much to actually battle and hold him off for the moment. Strongest Avengers gone and set the fastest third sector. And there is Subconan letting Crab go on through. Not putting up a fight there. So it's Fubar and Andrex coming past one of the Porsches here. Coming in towards turn 1. I believe that might be Otto. In that Porsche there is Mr. Zach. Where is he? 13th position. Being hunted down by As Turbo, in fact. So As Turbo has now got himself up into 14th place. We saw him down in 19th when he rejoined back into the lobby. He's still circulating around at the moment. So this could be a battle to keep an eye on in the final stages of the race, especially if Mr. Zach goes and makes a mistake with that, with the pace that As Turbo's got. As you can see, he's jumped right up onto the back of the Porsche driver, who dips the wheel into the gravel, almost loses the car there, coming out the exit. This is going to be As Turbo's best chance to try and make the position coming down towards turn 1. Mr. Zach going defensive. As Turbo is going to look to the outside. Who's going to be the later of the late breakers? As Turbo taking it fairly comfortable for the moment. Instead, just trying to set himself up with a good run coming through turn 2. Excuse me. And get a good run coming into turn 3 now. As Mr. Zach goes defensive once again, coming in towards turn 4. Will As Turbo have a look to the inside? He's having a little bit of a look, presenting himself in the mirrors, but wasn't quite able to get himself up alongside as Mr. Zach goes out a little bit wide, coming out through the exit there, but still holds onto the position for the moment. Goes to defensive there into turn 5, taking a very narrow, tight line, and then also tightening himself up on the exit to try and prevent the switchback from As Turbo on the exit of the corner. Things stay as they are coming through turns 7 and 8 up the hill now towards turn 9. Not really a passing opportunity as there's barely a braking zone, but if you can carry the speed and momentum, this is where you get the best opportunity on the run down towards turn 10. As Turbo being forced to go to the outside as Mr. Zach goes defensive, tries to defend the inside line. As Turbo switching himself up for a switchback, but Mr. Zach again goes and holds the defensive line on the exit and prevents and blocks that move from happening as well, forcing As Turbo to hold ground behind for the moment. Coming into the last few corners, be looking to try and get a nice smooth line through here and try and get himself a good run coming out the exit of the final corner to try and get the run in towards that first corner. So here we go then. Picking up the slipstream. Mr. Zach moving over to the right hand side of the circuit, defending the inside line. The only place that As Turbo can really go is to the outside unless he's going to make the dive down the inside, which Mr. Zach covers that off. And at the moment, As Turbo can't quite get the run to get up alongside, although he's got the run coming out the exit of turn 2 here. He's going to have the inside line for turn 3. Can Mr. Zach hold it around the outside? He's got the long way to go around, and it seems like Mr. Zach has lost the position to As Turbo as he manages to nose ahead and takes that position. And now As Turbo will be getting his head down and focusing on trying to pull away and consolidating that 13th position that he's now got. Inky Chris is just under 7 seconds up the road. Mr. Zach is not going down without a fight though, having a little bit of a look there coming into turn 5, but As Turbo had him covered, holds on to the position for the moment. Coming through turn 7 and 8. Oh, that's quite a lot of curb there for Mr. Zach. Surely that's going to be a slow down penalty, or slow down warning, shall I say, coming out of there, unless he manages to negate that somehow. But yeah, As Turbo now pulling out a few car lengths. As to Zach going for the dive. Oh, down the inside, the contact between the two. Both of them go round though. Oh, more contact between the two as As Turbo was trying to keep the car running. Put his foot to the floor and trying to donut around in a full 360. Ended up bumping into Mr. Zach once again. That'll be very frustrating for both the drivers. Now we've got Gwegwin right onto the back of Mr. Zach after all that commotion. Cadillac driver having a look to the inside as we're coming into turn 13. This is a difficult overtaking opportunity. This contact between As Turbo and Mr. Zach has now gone and switched on the windscreen wiper. It's going to be very much a compromised line coming through that final chicane there into the final corner for Mr. Zach. Gwegwin having a little bit of a look. We also got Nono, who's actually 11 seconds off the back, so that is actually volume there in that Ferrari 488. That is just watching the battle of the two drivers in front. Surely Gwegwin is going to have a good run coming down here. He's picking up the slipstream. He's got the inside line coming into the braking zone for turn 1. Surely this is going to be the move done and dusted if he can nail the apex, which indeed he does. And that is Gwegwin now up into 14th position. That all came from the lunge from Mr. Zach on As Turbo into turn 10. Getting too late on the brakes, just a little bit too far back, and then making contact with As Turbo and sending both the two drivers around. And actually jumping up to the battle for second position as we're on the final lap of the race now. Alan closing up onto the back of Speedy Go with a 44.2 on the previous lap. A good 0.8 of a second taken out of Speedy Go's gap that he had in front of Alan. Strongest Avenger still holding the lead at the moment. He's got a time penalty to his name, but I think it'll be a small enough one, and indeed it is. It's only a 1 second penalty. So unless he makes a major mistake in the final sector, final half of the lap, Strongest Avenger should be taking the race win here in the opening round of season 15. But will Alan be able to get close enough to make a lunge? Coming into turn 10, I think he is too far back, too many car lengths between himself and Speedy Go in front. Although Speedy Go does go a little bit defensive, that could potentially compromise his line. We've got some lap traffic up in front, but potentially they're going to come in play, but they do not. They do get nicely out the way, but Speedy Go is now very much under threat from Alan as they're coming into the last few corners. I know that Strongest Avenger is just coming out of the final turn now, so we'll pick him up in just a second as Alan's having a little bit of a look, but not quite close enough. Here is Strongest Avenger, flash of the lights as he comes across the start finish line to take the win here in round 1 of season 15. Speedy Go is just about managing to hold off to Alan in the Mercedes behind for second place. Alan picking up the final podium spot. Yorgok comes across the line in 4th position with a weave there. We then got Fubar comes across the line in 5th position, but that will be short-lived as his teammate Andrex comes across the line within 10 seconds. That 10-second penalty really high in Fubar there. It's going to drop him down to 6th and promote Andrex up into 5th place. WMDR Martin, he's had a good race with that windscreen wiper going all race long. Comes out and finishes in 7th place. He seems pretty happy. We've got Tiago Pereira He's now coming across the start-finish line. He'll be picking up 8th position here in this opening round. Tony Clifton manages to get himself back up into P9 after some troubles earlier on in the race. We then got Paphos just coming out of the final turn. He'll be coming across the start-finish line, and he'll be the 10th position spot. So that rounds out the top 10 there. We then got Stephen Curry comes across the line in P11. Inky Chris is just coming through the final corner in his BMW Z4, one of the drivers who pitted and served his mandatory pit stop on the opening lap. He comes across the line in P12 with Wegwin in the Cadillac. Just coming into the final chicane now. He'll be in 13th position, bar any major troubles through the final corner. And indeed, he does. So he'll be coming across the line in that Cadillac in 13th place, with Mr. Zach coming through the final turn in 14th position. And there's Nuno Aparicio, who's already crossed the line. He's there in 15th place. As Turbo still circulating around. He's in 16th position. I think he served a pit stop on the final lap of the race there, possibly to repair some damage. But yeah, here is your official confirmation of the results then. So Strongest Avenger taking the race win, pole position. Actually, no, sorry. It was Coates GTO who got pole position. Strongest Avenger started in 2nd place, but he gets the race win and he gets the fastest lap of the race as well with a 44.0. Speedy Go in 2nd place with Alan in 3rd, Yorguk in 4th position, Andrex 5th, Fubar in 6th position with WMDR Martin in 7th, Tiago Pereira in 8th place with 9th position going to Tony Clifton. Pathos rounds out your top 10. Thank you very much for saving the replay. Stephen Curry in 11th position, Inky Chris there in 12th with 13th position going to Gwegwin. Mr. Zach in 14th place. Nuno Aparicio is there in 15th position. As Turbo comes home in 16th position after a pretty troubled race. Otto in 17th position. 18th goes to Pun with Deuce in 19th position. Fatworm goes and takes 20th place with Kedhalf in 21st position. We didn't see too much of him in this race. Hopefully we'll see more of him in season 15. Crab comes home in 22nd position with 23rd going to Clank. Jobsk in 24th position with Sub Conan in 25th place. And then Volume was our last driver to finish the race, who comes home in 26th place. Wow, my voice is near enough knackered there. And usually at this stage, we'll try and pull a couple of drivers in for some driver interviews, but it appears that according to a number of drivers early on before we went live, my mic doesn't seem to be working with Discord for whatever reason, so the drivers can't really hear me, which makes it very difficult to do driver interviews. So I think unfortunately we'll have to skip those here for this round. I can see that Andrex is in the ready for interview room. I can see he's also in the live chat as well. So apologies, Andrex. I won't be dragging you in for an interview, but congratulations on P5. I know that you were kind of expecting to be a little bit further down the field, so I imagine you'll be quite chuffed with that result, and it's good to see you getting a strong result and having what looked like reasonable fun with the Audi. Obviously, congratulations to Strongest Avenger and also Speedy Go and Alan, our podium finishers. And then obviously commiserations to the drivers who didn't quite make the race due to technical issues or disconnections or troubles during the race, ended up retiring or getting a result that they're not entirely happy with. I know that As Turbo had a pretty troubled race after starting from... well, what would have been 3rd place, but was actually ended up being 2nd after Coates losing that pole position. But yes, I think we're going to round it out here and conclude this opening round of Season 15. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. Obviously, with everything going on in the world, times are quite tough. But here at Apex Online Racing, we are providing racing action throughout the week. So make sure you subscribe to the channel with the bell notification. That way, you'll be notified every single time that we go live. My name is Yorkie065. I have my own YouTube channel and social media channels as well. You can find my Twitter and YouTube links down in the description below. Be very much appreciated if you check out my personal channel as well. And yes, just I want to say before the next round, on the 1st of April, same time again, 8 p.m. UK time. We'll have round 2 with Ruin Les Essarts, and there'll be an interesting race there with the new format where we'll have 2 races in one for you guys. A short sprint race lasting 20 minutes, and then a longer feature race that will last about 40 minutes with a reverse grid order for the top 16 positions of the sprint race going into the feature race. So things will be very interesting there to see the tactics that drivers employ in terms of gaining points, because they will get points for both races in that round. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they can do, and hopefully the races will be very much action-packed. It was a great round to kick off Season 15 here. But I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. Just keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves fit, healthy, look after your friends, your family, and yourselves as well. Try and keep yourself distanced socially from everyone else. Make sure you keep in communication with everyone else. Keep yourself sane. Try and get the odd occasional bit of fresh air when you can. Keep your hygiene standards up. Make sure you wash your hands. And if you do start to suffer with potential symptoms of the virus that is hitting the globe at the moment, do everything in your power to make sure that you keep yourself healthy and get through it and out the other side, and obviously protect your loved ones and those around you. Thank you very much for watching in. Until the next time, we'll see you on the 1st of April. Have fun, stay safe, and take care.